Hi, my name is Margaret, and I'm a big buddy with Achieve Miami. Today, I will be reading Frog and Toad Together by Arnold Lobel. This book has an AR reading level of 2.9. I like this book because Frog and Toad are such good friends, and I like to read about them learning things together. The first chapter in this book is titled A List. One morning, Toad sat in bed. "I have many things to do," he said. "I will write them all down on a list so that I can remember them." Toad wrote on a piece of paper, "A list of things to do today." Can you see him here in his bed writing his list? Then he wrote, "Wake up." "I have done that," said Toad, and he crossed it out. Wake up. Zzzt. Then Toad wrote other things on the paper. Can you see his list here? Eat breakfast, get dressed, go to Frog's house, take a walk with Frog, eat lunch, take a nap, play games with Frog, eat supper, and go to sleep. Sounds like a busy day, doesn't it? "There," said Toad. "Now my day is all written down." He got out of bed and had something to eat, and then Toad crossed out. Eat breakfast. Zzz. Toad took his clothes out of the closet and put them on. Then he crossed out, get dressed. Zzz. Toad put the list in his pocket. He opened the door and walked out into the morning. Soon Toad was at Frog's front door. He took the list from his pocket and crossed out, go to Frog's house. Zzz. Toad knocked at the door. "Hello," said Frog. "Look at my list of things to do," said Toad. "Oh," said Frog, "that is very nice." Toad said, "My list tells me that we will go for a walk." "All right," said Frog. "I am ready." Frog and Toad went on a long walk. Then Toad took the list from his pocket again. He crossed out, take walk with Frog. Zzzt. Just then there was a strong wind. It blew the list out of Toad's hand. The list blew up high into the air. Can you see it blowing away? Woo! "Help!" cried Toad. "My list is blowing away. What will I do without my list?" "Hurry," said Frog. "We will run and catch it." "No," shouted Toad. "I cannot do that." "Why not?" asked Frog. "Because," wailed Toad, "running after my list is not one of the things that I wrote on my list of things to do." Well, Frog ran after the list. He ran over hills and swamps, but the list blew on and on. At last, Frog came back to Toad. "I'm sorry," gasped Toad. "I could not catch your list." "Bleh," said Toad. "I cannot remember any of the things that were on my list of things to do. I will just have to sit here and do nothing." Toad sat and did nothing, and Frog sat with him. Can you see them? There they are sitting together, doing nothing. After a long time, Frog said, "Toad, it is getting dark. We should be going to sleep now." "Go to sleep," shouted Toad. "That was one of the last things on my list." Toad wrote on the ground with a stick, "Go to sleep," and then he crossed it out. Zzz. "There," said Toad. "Now my day is all crossed out." "I'm glad," said Frog. Then Frog and Toad went right to sleep. The next chapter is called The Garden. Frog was in his garden and Toad came walking by. "What a fine garden you have, Frog," he said. "Yes," said Frog, "it is very nice, but it was hard work." "I wish I had a garden," said Toad. "Well, here are some flower seeds. Plant them in the ground," said Frog, "and soon you will have a garden." "How soon?" asked Toad. right soon, said Frog. Toad ran home. He planted the flower seeds. Now, seeds, said Toad, you can start growing now. Toad walked up and down a few times. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head close to the ground and said loudly, "Now, seeds, start growing." Toad looked at the ground again, but he did not see any seeds start to grow. Toad put his head very close to the ground. Can you see him there? And he started to shout, "Now, seeds, start growing!" Frog came running up the path. "What is all this noise?" he asked. "My seeds will not grow," said Toad. "You are shouting too much," said Toad. "These poor seeds are afraid to grow." "My seeds are afraid to grow?" asked Toad. "Of course," said Frog. "Leave them alone for a couple of days. Let the sun shine on them, and let the rain fall on them, and soon your seeds will start to grow." That night, Toad looked out of his window. "Drat," said Toad. "My seeds have not started to grow. They must be afraid of the dark." Toad went out to his garden with some candles. I will read the seeds a story," said Toad. "Then they will not be afraid." Toad read a long story to his seeds. All the next day, Toad sang songs to his seeds. And all the next day, Toad read poems to his seeds. And all the next day, Toad played music for his seeds. Can you see there? He's playing his violin. Toad looked at the ground. The seeds still did not start to grow. "What shall I do?" cried Toad. "These must be the most frightened seeds in the whole world." Then Toad felt very tired and he fell asleep. Toad likes naps, doesn't he? "Toad! Toad, wake up!" said Frog. "Look at your garden." Toad looked at his garden, and there were little green plants coming up out of the ground. "At last!" shouted Toad. "My seeds have stopped being afraid to grow." "And now you will have a nice garden too," said Frog. "Yes," said Toad. "But you were right, Frog. It was very hard work." The last chapter that we're going to read together today is titled Cookies. Do you like cookies? We'll see if Frog and Toad like cookies. Toad baked some cookies. "These cookies smell very good," said Toad. He ate one. "And they taste even better," he said. Toad ran over to Frog's house. "Frog! Frog!" cried Toad. "Taste these cookies that I have made." Frog ate one of the cookies. Can you see the big bowl of cookies Toad brought over? Frog ate one and he said, "These are the best cookies I have ever eaten." Frog and Toad ate many cookies, one after the other. "You know, Toad," said Frog with his mouth full, "I think we should stop eating cookies. We will soon be sick." "You are right," said Toad. "Let us eat one last cookie, and then we will stop." Frog and Toad ate one last cookie. But there were still many cookies left in that big bowl. "Frog," said Toad, "let us eat one very last cookie, and then we will stop." Frog and Toad ate one very last cookie. "We must stop eating," cried Toad as he ate another. "Yes," said Frog, reaching for a cookie. "We need willpower." "What is willpower?" asked Toad. Willpower is trying very hard not to do something that you really want to do, said Frog. "You mean like trying not to eat all of these cookies?" asked Toad. "Right," said Frog. Frog then put the cookies in a box. There, he said. Now we will not eat any more cookies. You think that's going to keep them from eating any more cookies? But we can open the box, said Toad. That is true, said Frog. Frog then tied some string around the box. There, he said. Now we will not eat any more cookies. But we can cut the string and open the box, said Toad. Yes, that is true, said Frog. Then Frog got a ladder. Can you see his tall ladder? He put the box up on a high shelf. There, said Frog. Now we will not eat any more cookies. But we can climb the ladder and take the box down from the shelf and cut the string and open the box, said Toad. That is true, said Frog. Frog climbed back up the ladder and took the box down from the shelf. He cut the string and opened the box. Frog took the box outside, and he shouted in a loud voice, Hey, birds! Here are cookies! You think the birds like cookies? Well, the birds came from everywhere. They picked up all the cookies in their beaks and flew away. Now we have no more cookies to eat, said Toad sadly. Not even one. Yes, said Frog, but we have lots and lots of willpower. You may keep it all, Frog, said Toad. I am going home to bake a cake. Thank you so much for reading with me today. I hope you liked Frog and Toad together as much as I do. I can't wait to see you again at the next Achieve Saturday.